Honestly, it was a little emotional. I remember my first game at Arrowhead and I just stepped onto the field and I'm like, my God, like my mother used to cheer for the Chiefs. This has been my childhood team that we have just grown up loving. It's always been about, Friday night lights, watching my dad. We'd watch football together on Saturdays. And then, of course, watch the Chiefs lose on Sunday. That was kind of the pattern growing up because you couldn't bank on them doing much more than that. And then Alex Smith came along, and then, of course, Andy Reid, and you started to feel that momentum build a little bit. So to be able to stand on the field, and I think I came in week 4 of the 2019 season. So that was a season that they went into winning Super Bowl 54 against ironically, the 49ers back then, which was the first Super Bowl in 50 years. So to be able to do that and to be able to continue to cover a team that has just come so far. I remember holding up on air my mom's little Super Bowl 4 onesie that she was given when she was 4 years old when they won the first Super Bowl they ever won. And then to see myself as an adult being able to cover that. It was such a full circle.
Hi there. Welcome to the Connecting KC podcast. I'm Rachel Kilmer, also known as Rach the Realtor on the internet, where I love, connecting all things KC. I'm a metro area real estate agent, retired sports reporter, and mom. And probably too old to call myself a TikToker, but honestly, that's how we got here. You can learn more at www.rachtherealtorkc.com. But this show is all about introducing you to all of the movers and shakers, interesting people, heartfelt stories, and funny quirks that make this vibrant community home. So let's get right to it with today's episode of Connecting KC. Welcome into today's episode of Connecting Kansas City. I am so excited to be joined by a familiar face to many of you if you are sports fans in Kansas City, Miss Hayley Lewis. She moved back to KCMO in 2019 to join the team at KSHB 41 as the weekend sports anchor. In the summer of 2023, she made the jump up from local TV to national TV, which was a lifelong dream. Hayley now freelances for ESPN, Bleacher Report, and hosts her own podcast called Chiefs News Daily on the Kansas City Sports Network. Prior to coming back to KC, Hayley worked as a reporter and anchor at ABC KEZI 9 in Eugene, Oregon, and WKRN News 2 in Nashville, where she attended Belmont University. Although she spent her collegiate time in Tennessee, Hayley was born and raised in Missouri. She grew up as a head football coach's daughter with a brother in D1 football, so talking sports second nature. Hayley spent most of her life moving from town to town around the metro, following her dad's career and learning the ins and outs of the business along the way. So her career choice not only connects her with her upbringing, but allows Hayley to showcase an industry that is a part of her core. Hayley, thank you for being here today.
Girl, you nailed that bio. I need you to actually give me that script because that was a perfect synopsis. So thank you so much for the lengthy introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. Now you're a busy gal working for multiple different companies. How has the transition from, local news, sports reporting to the big bad freelance world been for you?
Yeah, it's a jump at first, and it has to, you have to take a little bit of leap of faith on yourself because as we all know in freelancing, there's such a comfortability level with having, a W-2, having health insurance, being able to lean on the fact that every single week when that salary is coming in and that paycheck is going to be there, to now transitioning to, hey, I'm going to take a bet on myself and I'm going to bet on my own worth and my own talent. And I'm going to find gigs to make sure that I have enough gigs to make that salary and make sure that I'm in a good place financially, as well as being able to live life. And I think it's a daunting thought because you have to take that risk, but I was so happy that I did it. One of the best decisions I ever made. Definitely rocky in the beginning, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit. But now a year and a half later after freelancing for the first time, it's finally all falling in, it's falling into place. And I couldn't be happier with the freedom that it gives you, but also just the ability to go out and chase different things that you do and kind of have your hand in any little market that you want to.
And speaking of different markets, I think a lot of people don't realize how much of a grind local TV is, like working your way up the chain. Obviously, you're a Kansas City girl and then having to move out to Oregon and put in your time out there. Like, what was your journey throughout the broadcasting career to even just get back to Kansas City in the first place?
Yeah, it was definitely roundabout. So I went to college in Nashville, and that's kind of where I dabbled in sports for the first time. And it's so random how it came about. And it's kind of funny now that I'm 31. So this has been over 10 years ago, how many people don't know, those chapters of your life. When I was 21, I won the title of Miss Tennessee and competed at the Miss America contest, which is what paid for the rest of my college. And it's so funny saying that out loud because, I mean, as I'm sure you also have a father who's in sports. Like, I was raised on the sidelines. I was not some little toddler in tiara. I was not Honey Boo Boo by any chance. And it was so random to see myself in that kind of a spotlight. But it taught me a lot of the intangibles that I now use today. And I used that pageant kind of like a one and done. I was in and out. And although it was one of the best experiences of my life, I never thought it would happen. And I used it to pay for my school. But it kind of gave me that confidence of, oh, I can talk on camera. It teaches you those skill sets, right? It also teaches you how to present yourself. And as you know, mannerisms and body language, putting on makeup, getting your hair ready, being able to, as you know, in local TV, get ready within 5 minutes and be on air and make slot. It is a crazy part of the industry. So I started to kind of figure out that I could pair my skills and my knowledge of football, the dinner topic tables that we always had, with this newfound on camera skill. And so I started interning in college. And I started learning a little bit about that in Tennessee. And I remember if this is any encouragement to anyone who is searching for a job, when I graduated college in 2016, I put out 80 plus, at least 80 plus. And I have to go back and find the journal, job applications for anyone to just take a chance on me. I was so green. I had never done broadcasting outside of just doing internships in college, hoping that someone would hire me as a sports anchor in local TV. And I got maybe 3-ish calls back. And then one person actually offered me a job, and it was the station in Eugene, Oregon, which I had never been to the state of Oregon. I didn't even know where Eugene was, to be quite honest. And Pac-12 was so far removed, from Big Ten country over here and SEC football that we watch here in the Midwest. So it was Big 12 as well, very weird to move across the country and be like, all right, I'm going to start this new life for myself. But you have to take the chance. I think I made barely $30,000 a year, and I thought I was rich. So it's so funny to, go through those things and to be able to kind of gut it out, get your chops and learn the takes, because I thought that I belonged on ESPN when I was 22. I did not. And I'm so glad I wasn't given any chance to be near a big screen, because you have to get those little things out of the way. You have to fall flat on your face. You have to say stupid things. You have to get the emails sent in, ripping you apart, because it builds you into who you are. So that job really was like a lot of character for me. And then I had an opportunity to come home. We talked both about Mick Schaefer. He was someone who covered my dad in football here locally. And I remember reaching out to him and just said, if there's ever a job opportunity in Kansas City, and this was when Patrick Mahomes was taking over as a starter in 2018, I was like, please call me. Well, he called me like halfway through training camp, and he's like, hey, we have an opportunity. Would you come interview for it? And then, the rest is history. Now, got that job. That kind of locked me in with the Chiefs. You don't want to lose covering the Chiefs. So I've been able to freelance and stay on that beat, which has been amazing. But it's really a lot of chances that you got to take on yourself and kind of see where the wind goes.
Yeah. How is that for timing? Like, so we're the exact same age. We both grew up like probably 20 miles away from each other, I'm guessing. And so our Chiefs that we grew up with were not the Chiefs that you've been covering the last 5 years. So you go away, you come back to this like powerhouse team. Like, how did the little Hayley feel the first time you stepped back on the sidelines at Arrowhead and be like, oh, like I'm getting paid to be here and cover Patrick Mahomes and like an actual winning Chiefs team? Like, how did that feel for you?
Honestly, it was a little emotional. I remember my first game at Arrowhead, and I just stepped onto the field, and I'm like, my God, like my mother used to cheer for the Chiefs. This has been my childhood team that we have just grown up loving. It's always been about, Friday Night Lights, watching my dad. We'd watch football together on Saturdays. And then, of course, watch the Chiefs lose on Sunday. That was kind of the pattern growing up, because you couldn't bank on them doing much more than that. And then Alex Smith came along, and then, of course, Andy Reid, and you started to feel that momentum build a little bit. So to be able to stand on the field, and I think I came in week 4 of the 2019 season. So that was a season that they went into winning Super Bowl 54 against ironically, the 49ers back then, which was the first Super Bowl in 50 years. So to be able to do that and to be able to continue to cover a team that has just come so far. I remember holding up on air my mom's little Super Bowl IV onesie that she was given when she was 4 years old when they won the first Super Bowl they ever won, and then to see myself as an adult being able to cover that. It was such a full circle. Now the pageantry and the beauty of all that, it wears off too, because you get down to the nitty-gritty of the football season and you realize it's draining, it's stressful, it's a job. But I think for me, there's always that, God, I would be so proud of myself if I could, I'm sure that little girl would be very proud of what I'm doing today.
Yeah, for sure. When I was in Wichita sports reporting, it was the 2014 and 15 Royals. I started really young. Like some station hired me when I was 20. I don't know why. But anyway, I remember standing outside the clubhouse being like, oh my gosh, like I can't remember if it was 14 or 15. I was like, I hope we win this game because then we get to have a parade. And like, I've never been to a parade before. And one of the older reporters that had been there, I won't drop the name, but a million years, was like, man, I hope they lose this game. I'm tired. I don't want to cover a parade. And I was like, what? And then, yeah, I'm sure you do have those thoughts. It's like, okay, I am tired. I am exhausted. But then it's like the energy you feed off of it, right? Like, what is the grind like through the playoffs when you are covering this team? You're not only like traveling to some of the games, you're at the playoff practice facility every day. Like people don't realize you're like there standing in line waiting to get 30 seconds of audio. Like how much is a local sports reporter working when they're covering an NFL team deep into the postseason?
Yeah, I think people see the prettiness of it on TV and they think, oh, what a luxury. And I will say, like you mentioned, it is a luxury to be able to cover a Super Bowl team. And I have had those moments myself where I'm like, oh my God, they're going to make the playoffs again. This is going to be a long year. And right after they get done with it, it's going to roll right into, we're already in basketball. Then we're in March Madness. Then we're at the draft and the it rolls into each other and you think there's no breath. But at the same time, you have to also acknowledge how fortunate you are to be able to cover that. No, how many sports reporters could say they covered a World Series and a Super Bowl team? Like that is such a rarity to be able to check those things off of your list. And I do understand. I mean, I remember those people at my station too, who would just drag their feet and get so, ticked off that this is going to be a long season. But at the end of the day, you have to remember how fortunate you are. But I don't think people understand what all goes into it. So when you're a local TV, yeah, you might see me, looking all cutesy on the camera and doing my little 30-second bit, but that's like 2% of my day. The majority of my day, I'm hauling all of my camera gear around, mostly by myself. A lot of the times we had an MMJ, which means that you're doing your own camera gear work. So that means you're setting up your tripod, you're setting up your camera, you're throwing your mic on the floor 20 feet in front of you, zooming in on it, and then pulling up so that your shot would be in focus. And then you're running out there and you're recording yourself, and then you're whipping back around and looking at the camera to make sure you got it right. So you're the one hauling all that crap all throughout. And half of the job really is taking your camera gear from point A to point B. And it's no easy jaunt walking around Arrowhead Stadium, going down on the field, freezing your butt off, going all the way up to the press conference room, watching the game, tweeting in game, then going down to get the post-game interviews, going into the locker room, going to the press conferences. And so what you see on TV is 90 seconds, right? It's a 90-second package put together of something that takes 10 hours to get done and work. And half the time, you're trying to look good on TV while sweating like crazy because you're hauling all this gear around and you're also freezing outside. And so there's a lot that goes into it. And then there's the editing aspect of it. Yeah, the game's over. Yeah, the package is aired, but now I got to edit everything for tomorrow. I got to put a package together for the morning. I got to put my web together for the web team. It's a 14-hour day. And I think a lot of people don't understand how much goes into it. And then, I remember my parents, because the first year that I moved here for the first season, it was mid-season. So I lived with them. So I was fortunate enough to have them in Kansas City. I lived with them until after that season. And I had a little bit of time to be able to find my own apartment here. And they saw the grind in and out and how much you do and how much you produce, edit, write, shoot, and do on your own. And it is honestly just, I think it's eye-opening to see it as a family member, to be like, wow, that is a lot. And then a lot of times, thank God in Kansas City it was a little different, but a lot of times you're highly underpaid and you got to do so in hopes of the ambition that somebody notices you and that you can, throw the camera gear aside and go work for a national network one day and not have to do all the grind. But it's a lot of work. And I think I hate to say it, but it kind of weeds out the week. Like if you don't really want that, why do all that? And it kind of makes you figure out if you really want to do this or not.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I remember in 2014 or 15, one of those years, I had covered the celebration in the clubhouse. And so you get beer and champagne dumped on your head, right? And then you run out and you set up your own camera and then you pick up your iPhone and get in front of your tripod. And so my hair was just like plastered to my head with champagne and stuff. And the next day, so then I was in Wichita at the time. So we drove back to Wichita that night, got back at like 2:30, 3 in the morning, and then had to be back in the office at 10 the next day or whatever. And my news director pulled me aside and was like, we need to talk. And I was like, oh, what's wrong? And he's like, your presentation on camera last night, you looked really sloppy. I was like, because I had champagne in my hair? Like, this is a real conversation that happened. And I'm like, my male colleagues also had champagne in their hair, but they don't have hair. So it's not an issue. Like, what? True story.
Dude, the audacity though. Sometimes you're just like, what do you expect from me? There's champagne in my shot. Like, what do you want me to do?
Exactly. And I want to be like, have you looked in a mirror lately, my friend that's having this conversation with me? Because just a question. But what has your experience been like as a woman in the industry? Have you had moments like that where you're like, okay, I sometimes forget that I'm different, but I am different than most of my colleagues that I work around every single day?
Yeah, I mean, those instances will always come up. I think as a female, and what I learned throughout my years is that you have to set the tone early. You have to, and you have to. It's the sucky part about this, being a female and walking the line of being bossy and bitchy, right? And like making sure that you stay correct on that line so that someone isn't interpreting you being assertive for what you deserve and for what you want into, oh, she's just bitchy and she's so bossy, you know? And that's the really hard line that you got to walk. And it's unfortunate that you have to, but I think setting the tone early of, I'm not going to fall into that little token role that you think I should fit into. It doesn't mean I can't talk analytically about football. It doesn't mean I'm going to ask you fluff questions. And when I'm in the locker room, I'm there as a professional. Like that, and that's it. And that's all that there is to it. And people, I think a lot of times like to make light of those situations. And girl, I'm sure we could sit here for hours and talk about the weird ass comments that men make. But it's just, you have to just let it roll off, move on, know what you're doing, and just keep focused on the end goal, because people are going to feel a type of way about everything. And if someone thinks because I'm in this role as a female that I can't, bring more to it, then just, honestly, you're not the first person to say that. So what is that? Like that does nothing to me. Like, who cares? You just got to let it go. But yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons where you have to be mindful of things. And I'll be honest, like when I'm in a locker room or when I'm going into a clubhouse, I'm mindful of what I'm wearing. It is what it is. I'm mindful of what outfits I have on. I'm mindful of, are my jackets covering my lower half, like just making sure you're mindful. And it's just one of those things where you shouldn't have to do that, but you just do because you don't want to make it worse on yourself. And I really do respect the guys, though. I have had fortunate circumstances where I have worked with a lot of guys who have the utmost respect for me and who will treat me as an equal, which is great. But, when those comments are made, you just have to say, my favorite line that I say is, what an odd thing to say out loud. Like, what an odd thing to say out loud. But it's part of it. It's like with a lot of other things, that's part of life, and you just have to roll with it. And hopefully the women who continued to do what they did to make our job available to us will continue to fill their shoes and be those people who continue to push the agenda for other sports reporters who come in as well.
What's the dynamic been? Is your dad still coaching, first of all?
Girl, he is. He retired like 4 times and he's already back doing it. He's the head coach at Johnny Mission West. He retired. And I think my mom, she said something along the lines of like, you have to get a hobby that isn't me. And so he started coaching again. So he did not take much time away.
Did you ever cover your dad when he was coaching? Like, did you ever go shoot his games and like cover them? And like, what was that dynamic like for you?
So there was a few times, obviously, like conflict of interest when I was a local reporter. I couldn't really do that too much. But my dad was finishing out, or I was finishing out either I was done with my career in local TV or he was finishing out one of his games. And my news director was like, okay, go cover it. Like, that's a special moment for you. So I got to cover the highlights, get some video and get to see what he did, which was really cool just to be on the sideline again with my dad. Because the last time I was on the sideline with him was when I was a little girl. And I just think it was a really full circle moment for me to be able to see him do what he does best, see him talk to his kids, get to report on that and get to see the inside perspective of it. Because I know a lot of the family perspective of it. I know what he says at home, but to get to see him in action. And then I think the best thing that I always hear, and it always just it gets me emotional, because there are so many people I meet around Kansas City and they're like, oh, I know your dad. Your dad taught me. Or your dad was my coach. Like, please tell him hi. Like, he was my favorite teacher. Or he was a father figure to me when I didn't have that. Or they say different things where it just gets you like in the gut of, you're like, wow, I am very much so blessed to have a dad who left such a good reputation in Kansas City. So it was really special for me to get to be able to cover one of his games.
Yeah, that is really sweet. What went into your decision to go into Belmont as like such a Kansas City kid to leave and go that far away? How did that come about?
My sister went to Vanderbilt, so she's only a year older, and Vanderbilt is right across the street from Belmont. She's really smart, and she got a full ride to go be a smarty, and so she's like a biomedical engineer. And I was like, well, I can't get into that school, but I'll join you across the street. I can get into Belmont. I was actually a vocal performance major to start, so when I started college, I came on a scholarship to sing, which I had always done as like my hobby in high school. I always loved it. It was just a fun thing. It made me happy. But when I got to college, I kind of learned this isn't necessarily a career choice. It was more of an outlet. And when it became a career choice, I didn't love it as much. So I quickly switched over to business. But that's what got me down to Nashville. Just following I wanted to be near my sister. And of course, Belmont, it's just a beautiful school, great campus. They have good athletics. And it sounds so cliche, but when I visited, I was like, this feels right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that intuition thing is so real. Like, your gut just tells you when things right. So the sports reporting thing truly did not kind of come onto the radar until after the pageant then.
Yeah. Which is weird, because I never would have been Miss Tennessee had I not gone to Belmont, had I not been there. I also wouldn't have ever needed the scholarship money had I not quit my major and switched to another one, and felt really called to doing so. And then a friend of mine was like, hey, if you need money to go to school right now, and as we all know, back in that that time frame of life, the economy, it was hard. Okay. Like, I didn't really have any outside luxury of having someone help pay for my school. So I had to find a way. I couldn't just put that much debt in the ground for nothing. So I figured it out with that, and that kind of put it all together. Because what really happened was I was an intern in the athletic department just because I needed a work study to pay for one of my scholarships. So I was in there, and then the head basketball coach and I were just talking, and he saw what I did at Miss America. He's like, have you ever thought about sports reporting? And then I was like, no. And then I talked to one of the communications person in the athletic department. He's like, let's try it. Come sideline for the men's basketball team. Like, let's try it out. See if you like it. And that's really where it all started, was just kind of off of conversation, being in the right places. So was I born to be a sports reporter? I don't know if that's true, but I'm telling you, things fall into place for the right reason. And I feel like as windy as the path was, I couldn't feel more confirmed in what I'm doing now, because I take joy out of it every single day. No, I don't like getting up, and I sure as heck don't like having to always be on, and I get tired, and the season is grueling, but I sincerely do find joy in it, which I think is what keeps you going.
For sure. Love that. So then come back full circle here. You're kind of in this new season of life as you're like fully into freelance mode now. Where do you see this going? Like, what are your hopes and dreams over the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I was actually just talking with my agent about it, and just kind of trying to figure out what exactly do I want to do. And we had the conversation of, it's going to be hard to leave the Chiefs because of how well they do. And because of how well they do, you get more attention. You get more eyes on your content. You also get more gigs coming out because of that. There are more things going on. So Kansas City is a good place to be right now, especially with how the Royals even did this past postseason. They're building momentum. We have a women's soccer team. We have history being made here for women's soccer. There's a lot going on in Kansas City that would be really hard to leave. So I kind of made the comment of, it's going to have to be better, either like way better financially or a way better opportunity to leave the Kansas City market and freelancing here. But I'm definitely open to it. I mean, she even threw out, she's like, hey, NFL is going to try to expand to London. Would you ever move to London? And I was like, heck yeah. So I don't know exactly. It's a lot of conversations I'm going to have after this season. But I think being open to it's like I'm childless and young right now, so I might as well go do some things. I have nothing tying me down, so it's the time to go take those chances and see what happens. So ask me after the season, and I'll probably know a little more.
I love that. That's such an exciting spot to be in, for sure. Okay, last couple questions I ask everyone that comes on the show. First one is, what is a great meal that you've had out and about in Kansas City recently?
Ooh, Kansas City has such good food. Oh, okay. So we have this tradition. We go to Boulevard Tavern every single Sunday that the Chiefs are playing, and we'll eat breakfast at the bar and watch the games. And I always have my phone with me so we can YouTube TV another game that's not up and watch all the other games on the screen. But if you have not been to Boulevard Tavern, they've kind of like revamped. It's right across from Lulu's Noodles and Crossroad Hotel down in the Crossroads in Kansas City. And they have such a cute little outdoor patio place. So I love going there. But there are just so many new places that open. I tried Triune, which is kind of behind Kauffman Center. And then I tried Mineral Lounge, which is like a tannin adjacent kind of thing. I feel like something's opening new every single week. So basically, you just got to get on Instagram and you will find 1,000 new places to go eat. Because Kansas City is up and coming. I'm telling you, it's got a lot of good stuff going on.
It does. It is such a slept on foodie scene. And it honestly kind of stresses me out because I want to hit everything. And I'm like, I don't have time to go to all these places. But like, plug for Sarah. Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. That too. Like, it's like, man, it costs $100 to go out to eat dinner now. But like, plug for Sarah Stipple of The Pitch. She's my like food queen.
Oh my God, Sarah's a good friend. I love Sarah. She introduced me to the Fern Bar last week, which is phenomenal. You got to follow her. She has great content.
She'll never steer you wrong with food content. Okay, last question for you is, where can people find you? So if they want to follow along, where are you at on social media? Do you have a website? Where's your content? Where can they get your show on Bleacher Report? All of that good stuff.
Girl, I'm on the YouTube, the X, the Threads, Facebook, Instagram, all of it. It's all at Hayley Lewis _sports. So that's where you can find everything that I post. And I pretty much keep all my channels right there. You can also follow Kansas City Sports Network on YouTube because that's where my show is aired daily. But I post a lot of stuff on all my social media. So find me on the gram and then you will find everything else.
Love it. All right, Hayley, thank you for taking the time to be here. I really appreciate it, and so excited to continue to watch like over the next couple of years and see where this crazy thing takes you.
Yeah, thank you again for having me, and hopefully we can connect sometime in person.
For sure. Guys, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.